Mike, hello.
Hi, Nate.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right. Thanks
All
for
right.
asking. So let's start this off with, firstly, I'm here with Mike Bongart. He's one of our county commissioners. I'm Nathan Slusser. We're going to be working for the Veteran History Project today. We are currently at 500 Market Street in Steubenville, Ohio. It is the 8th of April, 2021 at 11 o'clock in the morning. So Mike, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Give me where you were born, your full name, your highest rank achieved, and
What was that one question?
born,
Yeah, I got that.
highest rank achieved,
Highest rank achieved.
Highest rank
Okay,
achieved.
yeah, that's what I missed.
and then your birth date, and
Okay.
yeah, where you're living now, and we'll be good. We'll start with that.
All right. First of all, my name is Michael Edward Bongart, Bongart, as in tango. Okay. I was born July 24th, 1943 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And I grew up in a town just to the south of Harrisburg called Steelton. It was a thriving steel town during World War II. Now, when people ask me, when did I enter military service, I tell them July 24th, 1943. And they look at me like I'm kind of nuts.
Okay.
But I was born in the middle of World War II.
Right.
My father, right after I was born, enlisted in the Navy. I had another uncle that was enlisted in the Navy, and I had an uncle enlisted in the Army. And by the time I was 3 years old, they were coming back, and I was learning to listen to their stories. And right across the street from me was General Abe Shelley. He was a lieutenant general in the United States Army. And Mitch Nicholoff, right up the street, was a fighter pilot. And oh man, he was my hero. And my dad served on a minesweeper in the Pacific, and my uncle wound up doing some work in the Philippines as a CB.
Oh wow.
And so yeah, and boy, I heard their stories. And every Flag Day, my dad put out the flag, 4th of July, and then of course he joined the VFW and American Legion. So we had these parades, and next thing I know, I'm playing Army. And 11 years old, we were parachuting into Normandy, and that's when I did not do a good PLF, and I broke my left arm and wrist 3 paces, compound fracture. I had grass in my arm. They took me to the hospital, and I spent a week in a hospital with a broken arm.
Oh wow.
But the thing about it is, and I got this incredible infection, and they were pumping me with penicillin, and it happened on a Sunday night, and on Tuesday, one of the doctors called my mother and said, we're going to have to amputate his arm in the morning. And my fever broke that night. And so they scrubbed the operation, but they forgot to call my parents. And when the parents came to the hospital, they saw that I still had my arm and everything, and my fever had broken. I was able to talk and out of it and everything, and it was like about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I said, I haven't had anything to eat all day. They took me off the food schedule plan, and finally, all of a sudden, they were making special foods for me, and that. So yeah, that's the story on my left arm that kind of caused complications down the road. I was in midget football. I was a quarterback, and I was a catcher and stuff like that, and it really messed up my athletic experience growing up as a kid. But
wow.
I always had an interest in the military, and I figured someday I'm going to serve. Now, but in my junior year in high school, I felt a calling from God to serve in the ministry, and I went to my minister and told him my sense of calling, and all of a sudden, after I graduated from high school, I went off to Shenandoah College to study for the ministry. Well, things weren't going very well, and I wasn't ready for it. I had a girlfriend back in Steelton. I was hitchhiking from Winchester, Virginia, back to Steelton about every weekend, and my grades were really going down.
Okay.
And I thought, man, I'm going to join the Navy. So right before the end of my first semester, I went down to the Navy recruiter in Winchester, Virginia, and I told him I was interested in joining the Navy. And so he gave me a bunch of tests, and when he graded them, he says, hey, you really got some good scores. I can sign you up for the nuclear Navy.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, okay. So I started filling out the paperwork and everything. And when I gave it back to him, he looked at this. My home of record was 24 North 4th Street, Steelton, Pennsylvania. And he said to me, what are you doing here? And then I told him, well, I was a pre-ministerial student up at Shenandoah College, and I'm just not ready, and I want to join the Navy. And he looked at me, he picked up the phone, and he called his minister. And then he hung it up, and he gave me the minister's name and address, and he says, I want you to go talk to my minister. And after talking to him, if you still want to join the Navy, come back and I'll sign you up. So I went and I talked to his minister, and his name was D.D. Clark, and he basically said, look, Mike, you only got a couple of weeks to go before you finish the first semester. If you leave now, you lose everything. Go back and see what you can salvage. So I went, it made sense, and so I decided not to join the Navy. I went home. My girlfriend started pressuring me to get married, and I just wasn't ready for this. And so one day, this had been back in 1992. 62, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's about 3 or 4 months after I got back from Shenandoah College. I quietly went down to the Army recruiter and said, I want to join the Army. Because it was either that or getting married. And I loved her, but I wasn't ready.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
That makes sense.
So I went and they took the physical. Well, first they gave me the writ, and then I took the physical. And after I was done, the Army recruiters sat me down and said, you flunked the physical.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him and I said, why? He says, well, first of all, with my left wrist, I don't have complete rotation of it. And he said, second, they found albumins in your urinalysis. And I didn't know what it was, but he said, it could indicate that you had some type of kidney problem. And so all of a sudden, I was declared 1Y, which was qualified for military service only in the times of war or national emergency.
Okay.
Okay, so back in 1962, for finding a job, this was a nice card to have. And so I took typing in high school, and I wound up getting a really nice job for Eastern Express Trucking Company as a teletype operator. And so I was typing, and finally my girlfriend said, look, dump me. A few months later, married one of my buddies, and okay, there I am, and I said, yeah, I got to do something. I got to get out of the area, and I decided I was going to take flying lessons. So I went to the local airport across the river, Harrisburg, York, and started taking flying lessons. And I got my pilot's license, and I was working towards commercial. And, well, before I soloed, I had to take a physical to get my pilot's license.
Yeah.
And so I went to this flight surgeon, and he had me urinate, and all of a sudden he found these albumins. He says, "We got a problem here." He said, "I want you to," he gave me a clean container. He said, "I want you to urinate in the morning, first thing in the morning, and take this to a lab, and then I'll give you a call." So I did that, and he called me back and said, "Look, I can pass you because there were no blood molecules attached to your albumin."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "If there were, you would have a serious kidney problem. But," he says, "on that, I can pass you." So, all right. So I continued. I figured I'm going to go fly for the airlines. And
Right.
in fact, my flight instructor came to me and says, "Mike, if you go to the bank and get a loan and get your commercial license and instrument ticket, you stand a good chance to get on with the airlines, because all the World War II pilots that wound up flying for the airlines are retiring, and they're going to be looking for pilots." He says, "I'll take you over to flight ops at TWA." So he took me to flight operations there at Harrisburg York Airport, and I talked to the honcho in operations, and he said, "Yeah, it's true." He says, "We're going to need pilots, and if you get your commercial ticket, instrument rating, there's a good chance that we can hire you." I said, "Okay." And then as I was leaving, he says, "How are you fixed with the military?" I said, "Oh, I flunked a physical back in." He says, "If you can't pass a physical for the military, you're not going to pass a physical for us."
Oh, that had to be a bit of a dream crusher.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, that'd be a hard hit.
And I'm thinking, I'd spent all this time, and I thought, and one of the things, now I could have gotten a commercial ticket and done some corporate work or something like that, but I also wound up working at the airport part-time in addition to my teletype operating job. And I talked to corporate pilots who would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, fly into the Harrisburg York Airport, and land about 9 o'clock, and sit there to sometimes 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and then fly their party back to wherever. And they were saying, "Mike, you got to think about this kind of job."
Right.
Yeah. So anyhow, and then this was in 1967. I went to my grandparents for Sunday dinner that our family usually went, and in the Sunday paper there's a called Parade magazine. It is a Sunday supplement paper magazine to the paper.
Okay.
On the cover were these warrant officer candidates. And I read the article about how the Army was training these young warrant officers without college educations to fly helicopters.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. I went to the Army recruiter, and I said to him, I took a physical back in 1962, and there were some problems, but the problems are all taken care of. And I said, I want to sign up for one officer flight training. He said, okay. So he arranged it. Now, I figured my arm problem, well, when I took the physical in '62, I showed him and they took a serious look at it. And so this time, I got a real thick watch band to cover the whole of my wrist, and I wasn't going to tell them about it. Okay, now as far as the albumins, I went to the drugstore and they got these dipsticks where I could check to see how my albumins were, and in the morning they basically were low, but towards the end of the day they were really starting to climb up on that dipstick scale. Well, anyhow, I found out if I fasted the night before, on my first fasting, I didn't show any albumins. So I figured, okay. So when the day I had to take the physical, got up, did not urinate. So Army recruiter took me over to New Cumberland Army Depot. And by then, now this is December 1967.
Okay.
Okay. The place was packed. You know, all these guys are getting drafted and everything, and there were so many of us, they divided us into two groups. The first group got to take the physical, the second group got to take the writ. Well, I was in the second group. I had to take the writ. So here I am, trying to hold back.
Yeah, that's gotta be.
I got to urinate so badly that, so finally I got through the writ, got to take it, and man, it was such a relief. And
Could only imagine.
And so got through it and everything. So after I took the written physical and everything, went to the Army recruiter, and he said, "Now what are you here for?" I said, I'm signing up for warrant officer flight training. He said, "I can't send you." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "On one of these scores, you missed it by 1 point."
Oh, no.
And I was devastated. And so I got up, and I'm walking out. He says, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm not signing up." He says, "You better get back here because in 10 days you're going to be drafted." And I thought, whoa, what did I do? So I went back and I talked to my flight instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Binky was his name, yeah. And I explained to him what I did, and he says, "Well, I'm friends of Colonel Hemmaker, Colonel Hemmaker. He was in charge of the Army Air National Guard at the Harrisburg York Airport."
Okay.
Okay. So he took me over, introduced me to the colonel, and colonel said, I want to give you some tests. So I went, I took these tests, brought it back, he looked at them, he thought, "Wow, you're one of us, you did really, really good." He says, "Yeah, we can send you to helicopter flight training, but there's a problem. They're training all these helicopter pilots for Vietnam right now, and so we won't be able to send you for a couple of years. But in the meantime, you can sign up and we'll send you to aircraft rotary maintenance." And I thought, okay. And he said, "Go down to the Selective Service Board, pick up your physical, and bring it back to me, and I'll swear you in." So, okay. So I went to the Selective Service Board, and interestingly, the woman behind the desk, Mrs. Porkovich, was the mother of a really good friend of mine from high school. And
Okay.
I said, "Mrs. Porkovich, I'd like a copy of my physical so I can take it and go join the Army Air National Guard." Okay. And she was gone for like about 10 minutes. And she came back, she had this expression on her face, and she says, "What are you trying to do?" I said, "I need my physical, go join the Army Air National Guard." And she laid it out. She says, "You can't get in the Army Air National Guard with this." She says, "Back in 1962, you took the physical, you were classified 1Y. Your case came up before the Civil Selection Board,
Mm-hmm.
and they reclassified you. You're now 4F.
What's 4F?
4F is you're totally disqualified from military service.
Wow.
And then she said, what are you trying to do? And then I told her the story about this.
Yeah.
She goes over to the desk and picks up the phone and calls the Army recruiter. And she started talking to him. And he told her that he's holding my physical and waiting for me to come back to sign up for something. So she says, he's holding your physical. And they're talking some more. And then she says, she'll hold the phone like this. He says that if you come in, he'll sign you up for aircraft fixed wing maintenance. And in 16 weeks, you can apply for Warrant Officer Flight Training School.
It's not too bad.
And I said, no. I said, yeah, it's not too bad.
Right,
absolutely. Right. So I said, okay. So this is, I'd say this is like, you know, like this December, right before Christmas and everything, and so then it was about the second week of January. He calls my house. Mom answers the phone. And she says, it's the Army recruiter. And I picked it up and he says, I got a date for you, 22 January, 66. Wait, yeah, I might have gotten some of the, yeah, 65 is when I retook the physical.
Okay.
Not 67 yet.
That's all right.
Okay, and then I told my mom that I was going in the Army, and she was not happy about that at all.
Yeah, I'm sure those times there was definitely going to be some concern about you
Yeah.
going.
So January 22nd, 1966. I and a bunch of other guys raised our hands and swore to defend, protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and I was a Private E1 in the United States Army. They sent us from Harrisburg to Fort Jackson, South Carolina by train, which was an experience.
I'm sure.
And I got there, and I was assigned DA2 training company, and of course we had 0 week. You're Army, right?
Yeah, no, I was Air Force, but we had zero.
Yeah, okay.
We had 0 week as well.
Okay, so 0 week. And one of the things I did, had this sergeant ask for volunteers, so hey, I volunteered. And of course I got some crappy detail.
Right.
Following day, looking for volunteers, I volunteered again. And I got another crappy detail. The third day I volunteered again. He said, Bongart, get out of here. He knew my name.
That's never a good thing.
Hang in there, hang in there. So and then right before we started basic training, we had to take another physical. So all were lined up. They give us their bottles to urinate in, and I thought, man, I had already urinated. I think I had breakfast and everything. I said, so we're going in the latrine to urinate. I turned to the guy behind me. I said, I just went, can you go my bottle for me? And so he urinated in my bottle. So, of course, I didn't show him my wrist or anything like that. Yeah. And so I got through, it was the second week of basic training. First sergeant comes out. And he says to the whole company formation, can any of you guys type? And I put up my hand with about 10 other guys. And he took us into his office and one by one set us down at the typewriter, put it in type. Well, when it came my turn, I said, I understand, I was a teletype operator for Eastern Express Trucking Company.
Right.
I could type 70 words a minute.
Yeah.
And
That's
I started,
moving, yeah.
I started, he grabbed me and he says, "You are now my company clerk." And so not only was I typing up reports and everything, I was typing up homework for his babysitter. Okay. And then, one day he came, he says, "Mike, you're 22 years old. What took you so long to get here?" Well, my Army recruiter told me if I was ever asked that question, just tell me you were in college and dropped out. I said, "Yeah, I was in college and dropped out." He says, "You enlisted. Why did you enlist?" I said, "I want to go to Warrant Officer Flight Training." He said, "Okay." So a couple days later, he came back and he checked and he says, "Mike, I looked at your records." He said, "You qualified for Officer Candidate School." He said, "It's better to go to flight school as an officer than a warrant officer trainee."
Which would make sense.
I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay, apply for OCS and apply for infantry OCS because that's your best chance of getting in." And he said, at the end of 16 weeks at OCS, it was always 16 weeks, you can apply for flight school. I said, "Okay." So then he says, "All right." And he named him. He named the colonel, the lieutenant colonel, and major. These are the three guys that are going to be interviewing you. And these are the questions they're going to ask you. Now we're going to work on the answers you give them. So he started prepping me for this. And he said, when you go in, prepare for your interview, you sit on that front edge of the chair, you put your hands on your knees, sit up straight and look them straight in the eye. And when it came time, I did that. Then I got accepted for OCS.
Wow.
And going through OCS, 16th week, I went to my TAC officer, Lieutenant Rob. I said, "Lieutenant Rob, I want to apply for flight school." He says, "You can't." I was told I can. He says, "I've been trying to apply for flight school and they won't let me." I said, he says, "I'll check it out." So he went to CO went up to battalion says, "Yeah."
For you or for you and him?
For me.
I bet that didn't make him very
Oh,
happy.
no. And what it was, to my whole class, it was put out that anybody wanting to go to flight school can apply. And it was specifically for my class.
Oh, wow.
And so I wound up, I don't know, there's like 50 or 60 of us that took this test, and I wound up with the 5th highest score.
Is that because you were pilot in the past, or
Well,
or what kind of test was it?
it was just, I'll tell you, the biggest help I ever got. Right before we're getting ready, there was a guy in our company that was the son of an admiral. And he said, "Look, they're looking for aggressive, but not crazy people in this test." And, and one of the questions is, "Do you drive fast?" "Yes." "Are you safe when you drive?" "Yes." Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of test it was.
Okay, so kind of like a mental qualification?
Yeah, and had it not been for him, I think I might have not done so well.
Okay.
Because I could pick out those questions I felt that they were looking for. They were looking for confident kind of aggressive people, personality types.
Well, that would make sense for
Yeah.
what you were gonna be doing.
Yeah, and so next thing I know, after I graduated from OCS, they sent me back to Fort Jackson as a training officer. I was there from January to June, and I was to the sister company of the company that I went through as enlisted personnel, and I was having fun. My drill sergeants from Delta Company were saluting me. Yeah.
That turned around quickly, huh?
Oh.
Yeah, that's a
So, next thing, I forgot to mention this. When I got to OCS,
mm-hmm.
one of the first things they did was give us another physical. And there was a guy there, very friendly guy, outgoing personality by the name of Joe Baginski. And I said, Joe, I said, look, I got this situation. Can you urinate for me? Joe said, yeah. So, he urinated in a bottle for me, and we got through that. And then one time, it was in tactics class, and there was over 100 of us in this tactics class. The TAC officer stood up, hey, did you hear about this Pollock that stayed up all night studying for his urinalysis exam? And everybody Joe stood up, yeah, there's one guy in here that can't pass it. He sat down, and they're all like looking at him. I'm thinking, oh God, Joe, man, what are you doing? So, all right, now, after I left Fort Jackson as a training officer, went down to Mineral Wells, Texas, Fort Walters flight school. And I'm in this class, and who shows up in the flight school? Joe Baginski. And of course, we had to do another physical. Hey, Joe, go in the bottom.
Hook me up, buddy.
Fix me up. And so, so eventually, after primary flight, well, I'm going to back up a little bit again.
That's fine.
When I was a training officer at Fort Jackson, there was 3 of us that went together and rented a house.
Okay.
And one of the guys was John Sonia. John was from Savannah, Georgia. His father was in the Air Force Reserves and also a judge in Savannah. And John found out through his father that the Army was taking over Hunter Airfield to make it Hunter Army Airfield. Hunter Air Force Base to make it Hunter Army Airfield.
Okay.
Okay. So he said, you ought to see if you can get sent to Savannah. So I got to Mineral Wells, and the class I was in was rather small. And it was strictly, we were all officers, and then there's a couple of Vietnamese in our class for primary fight.
Okay.
Okay. Got through primary flight, and sent to Savannah. I didn't have to request it. It just came up automatically. And it turned out we were the second class. And the reason we were so small is they were trying to work out all the details and everything to transition to an Army airfield from the Air Force. Well, when we got there, they didn't have any BOQs or anything for us, so they gave us per diem. And so I went downtown and got me an apartment in a high-rise in Savannah. And so every morning when I come down, there's like a coffee shop. And there was a guy in the coffee shop with a bunch of books and everything. And so after a couple mornings, I went over and started talking to him. And his name was Bobby Herndon. He was explaining to me that he was studying for the bar exam.
Oh,
He wanted to become a lawyer, and of course I told him that and so I'm going to flight school, and his girlfriend, it's, hey, let's double date. She fixed me up with a very nice lady, so all of a sudden I'm working in the downtown Savannah Society. And it was it was really nice. There I am, flight school, and a great social life as a single man. Having a great time.
I was gonna say 22 years old, 23 years old, you're living the life right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't, that's not a bad thing at all.
and then getting officers pay too.
Right.
Yeah.
And per diem.
Yeah. Seriously.
And you went in with 3 guys, right?
Huh?
The apartment was you and 2 other guys, right?
Well, actually, I wound up getting an apartment with one other guy who wound up getting connected with a woman and staying with her, so I basically had the apartment to myself.
Oh, that's even better.
Exactly.
He's helping to pay for it, and you're reaping all the
and he
rewards.
was helping me pay for it, yeah.
That's what I was getting at. The per diem is now cut in half for you guys. So.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So, next thing, got through. It was time to get my wings and everything, and got a date. And my date was Miss Ogeechee, a very pretty lady. She's the one who pinned the wings on my chest, and Sandra Jean Moore. And next thing, go home and went out to California early. A buddy of mine, Andy Schindler, he and I had TR3 Triumphs, and we ran around Harrisburg before going into the service. And so I went first, he went second. He went through OCS, but he wasn't going to flight school. Well, he got married while he was in OCS, and he and his wife were out in California at Fort Ord. And he wrote and said, on your way to Nam, stop. So I went out to see him, and he showed me Southern California, Big Sur, and all that. And caught the big bird. And
so you went from flight school straight to Nam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, 30-day Atlanta route or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were going to Nam?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I get there, and the first thing I walk off, I went over Continental Airline.
Okay.
Okay. Stepped out of the aircraft. First thing was the smell.
Okay.
The second was the heat.
I'm sure.
And so went to the 90th replacement. I was there a couple days, and they said, okay, you've been assigned to the 195th Assault Helicopter Company in Long Bend, which is only a few miles away. And Long Bend was a really big area.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to this company, and the company initially came over to Vietnam on a boat. Okay, so the majority of the guys in the company already had 6 months in country. So here I am, a new second lieutenant coming into the country, and they basically didn't know what to do with me, because they had all their officers in for leading the platoons, and all the officer slots were filled. So they made me the assistant operations officer and gave me all the
Crap jobs.
crap. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll say, yeah, I want to say the
I
S
know what you
word,
meant.
but I won't keep this PG.
Well, real quick, before we go any further, you said some guys have been there for 6 months. Do you guys have an idea when you're going to Nam how long you're going to be there for?
Oh, it's 365.
You're doing a 1-year tour no matter what.
Yeah,
Okay.
365. That's the deal.
Okay.
And you had guys, you'd be flying on the radio, you'd hear, short, how short are you? 19 days, I'm shorting you, I got 15,
Yeah.
stuff like that. All that went on.
Okay.
And so when your DRO state was up,
You got to go.
You got to go catch
Okay.
the Freedom Bar. Well, anyhow,
Yeah.
so here I am, and as this second lieutenant, assistant operations officer. In fact, they gave me Sky Chief 3 Alpha was my call sign. And in the TO&E, there's no such 3 alphas, but,
Right.
okay. But I was in charge in generators, I was an intelligence officer, payroll officer, and all this stuff. And, I wanted to fly. I'm not getting that much flying time. Every now and then, I'd get ash and trash and a couple combat assault missions like that, but nothing really exciting or whatever.
Just the routine run-of-the-mill stuff.
Yeah, and I was getting a third of the flight time that I thought I would be getting, and I thought, oh man. So finally, now most of the company's getting ready to deros, and so the company commander said, hey, we're going to send you this second airlift platoon, which interestingly changed their name from Sky Chiefs to Ghost Riders. They did this internally. So we have a first airlift platoon of Sky Chiefs, second airlift platoon of Ghost Riders, just because they wanted to.
Yeah, but it sounds a lot cooler. It sounds a lot cooler.
Oh, yeah.
Saying Ghost Rider is a lot cooler than Sky
Yeah,
Chief.
yeah.
So-
And they had Ghost Riders painted on
Yeah.
the nose of the helicopters and things like that. So, but I'm still carrying the call sign of Sky Chief 3 Alpha, and I'm trying to figure out what my new call sign would be. And here I'm being groomed to be the platoon leader.
Okay.
So all right. So, and the thing is, where I was sent to was a rubber plantation, Daoqiang, I believe it, and we were assigned. We were OPCON to the 5th Special Forces, and our helicopters were camouflage with no U.S. markings on them, and we were wearing Vietnamese Tiger Stripe fatigues and Vietnamese insignias. By then, I was a first lieutenant, and the guy I was to replace, Gene Neal, was from York, Pennsylvania, which was only like about 30 miles from where I grew up in Steelton. So he and I became really good buddies, and Gene was a really good pilot. He was also a sports car race driver. So he was good. So he was teaching me the ropes and everything. But our job, what it was, we would fly South Vietnamese warrant officers dressed in NVA uniforms, and we would fly them near the Cambodian border, but we never knew where the Cambodian border was, so I'm sure that we did some drops in, not Cambodia, in Laos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in Laos,
Mhm.
okay? And this was cool. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and what they would do, they'd go into like a village and pretend that they're NVA, and then they'd meet up with the guys that were VC in the village, and then take them on a patrol, and that's when we would go into action and take off flying low level, and they would decide who they were going to take prisoner and who they weren't. And when we got there, the ones they wanted to take prisoner just threw on a helicopter.
And they had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were told to keep this quiet and everything.
Well, no doubt.
Yeah, and so one day I'm flying along. I wanted to stop to the PX to get some things, and picked up. It was a Newsweek magazine, and in Newsweek magazine there's a little blurb called Periscope of some of the things that were happening.
Yeah.
Right there it was, Delta Project, Operation Roadrunner, and I took it back and showed it to them.
The media ruins everything, doesn't it?
Oh,
I mean,
unbelievable. Well,
Yeah.
anyhow, so I spent about a month flying, And then the thing is, I was flying what we call a Peter pilot, with the right seat or co-pilot to Gene Neal, you know.
Okay.
Okay. Well, when I got back to the company area, I flew with the CEO, and he checked me out, and he says, okay, you're qualified, we're gonna make you an aircraft commander, which meant I go from right seat to left seat. Okay, well, Gene said to me, he says, we gotta get you left seat time quickly. So I want you to fly with the 240th Greyhounds tomorrow. They got a combat assault coming up. So, okay, here I am, left seat, first time I like go out, and these guys were nuts. I mean, going into an LZ, next thing I look up, and there's one that kind of came in too hot, and he's above me and trying to back off, get behind me. And, you know, it was a flying circus. So when I got back that afternoon, I said, Gene, these guys are nuts. He says, well, don't worry. We're all standing down tomorrow. You know, we got tomorrow off. You know, there's a Chinese restaurant that just opened up here in Long Bend. Let's go to the Chinese restaurant. So we went. He got the Jeep, and a couple warrant officers went with us, and not only Chinese food, but plenty of libations. And so by the time we got back to the company area, it was late. I think it was past 12 o'clock. And we went into base ops, and there are all our names on the board to fly.
Uh-oh.
And who are we flying for? The 240th Greyhounds. We have to send them an airlift platoon, five slicks. And I only had a couple hours sleep. And I went down, you know, pre-flight my bird. I'm waiting for my co-pilot, Peter Powell, to show up. It's Bill Hall. Bill was one of the guys with us, a young warrant officer who was in worse shape than I was. And I said to Bill, I said, okay, I'll fly in the morning, you get some sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. So we took off out of Long Bend, and we're heading down southwest to a fire base near the Plain of Reeds. And about halfway down, I had a blade that was really out of trim, and I'm, you know, like this, going back and forth, and I'm
Just getting your butt kicked.
yeah, it's not too good for my hangover. Yeah, okay.
Sure, it's not.
So I called Gene. I said, hey, Gene, man, this blade is really out of trim. How about if I go back and get another ship? And then there's some talk back and forth. He says, okay. So I went back. And when I landed at the 195th, they had this freshly painted camouflage helicopter that was to go to the CO. This was the replacement bird that they had for me. So, new crew chief and door gunner, you know, and Hall and I take off. Now I'm trying to play catch up, and I'm calling, and they gave me the coordinates and everything, and they had already started cranking. They were all lined up at this fire support base, and Gene told me to take up chalk 8, position 8. So there's 10 slicks, 5 from the 240th Greyhounds and R5 for the 195th. And so all the troops get on board, and we all take off. And the artillery's firing downrange at the prepping the LZ. And we're up 2,000 feet. All of a sudden, command and controls, you know, start your descent. Now I'm flying echelon left. I'm flying off a chopper that's to my right and ahead of me.
Okay.
Okay. as we're going in, the first flight of, well, command and control called for a separation. They said the LZ's a little tight. The second flight, back off, 30-second separation, whatever. Okay, so we all slowed down, and as soon as the first flight got in, everything broke loose. We had machine gun fire, boom, boom. Yeah, gunships are rolling in, firing rockets, machine gun, things like that. And so they take off, and now one of their slicks went down, and all of a sudden the gunships broke off to cover the down slick. So we're going to get in without slick coverage. And, I'm going down, and all of a sudden, the chopper on my right brakes. And there was so much chatter on the road, on my earphones. I'm monitoring Charlie, command and control, my platoon leader, and intercom. And my door gunner is hitting the leg, takes a shot in the leg. And I thought, he's pulling up. And I started to go with him. I thought maybe there was a call to abort.
Yeah.
And then when he turned in such a way, I looked through his cargo door and he didn't have any troops on board. And I thought, man, there is no way I am going back with these troops on board. So basically, I had to slow my airspeed down and more or less come to almost a high hover and walk that ship down into the middle of the LZ. And we're just taking hit after hit. Plexiglass is flying across my leg. All of a sudden, the needles go. I lost power. And, by the grace of God, I pulled all the pitch I had in the blades and a perfect auto rotation into the LZ. Everybody gets off and starts running. Well, I kind of lean forward. I'm shutting everything off that I can. And all of a sudden, my door gunner, who was hitting the leg, stops, comes back up through the cargo door, and starts helping me out with my shoulder harness. And he says, I can't believe you're still alive. I said, what do you mean? He says, look at your windshield. And I looked up, and there was like about 7 bullet holes, like a perfect arc that just went by my head. I looked and I saw where they went into the firewall and everything. And he said, yeah, saw this guy, VC, just unload his AK-47 right at you. He said, I tried to get him with a machine gun, but we had stops to keep him.
Right.
Yeah. And he said, I hit the stop and I couldn't get him. He says, I can't believe he didn't get you. Cool me, okay? I started wiping my face. Said, if there's blood, I'm putting in for a Purple Heart.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story is, be careful what you ask for because you may get it. So anyhow, all of us, there was like a dike that we climbed over,
Right.
and it provided us protections from straight-in fire. And so my crew and I are together, and we're in a rice paddy channel of water about 3.5 feet. And as we're going along, I see the company commander of the troops that we inserted. He's up on the bank, kneeling position, calling on his radio. So I crawled up and I said, hey, just to the 3 o'clock position for my helicopter's machine gun, and see if you can get some artillery in on him. And so the artillery started coming in. Next thing, a couple F-100Cs show up and they start their dive bomb. And when they hit the afterburners, you could see the bombs come out, the fins on the bombs, and there'd be mud all over everywhere. And then on this horizon, we could see several gunship teams just wanting to get in on the action. So, at first there was a fear of us being overrun, and Nate, I have to tell you, I took a look at I had my 38 snub nose out. I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn door with.
Right.
And I said, 5 for them and 1 for me. I was not gonna be taken.
There's nothing you can do, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way, and I thought, this is stupid. I don't wanna kill anybody, and I don't want anybody to kill me.
Right.
And, well, anyhow,
Well,
so,
those thoughts are gonna go through your head, I
Yeah.
mean, at times. It's
So-
not good.
so he, the commander told me, take your troops, and he said, just follow the rice paddy channel along the dike, and we have a collection point where we're gathering the wounded down there. He said, get with them, and we'll get a chopper to get you out. He says, I don't know how long it'll take, but just stay there. And I thought, okay. And so I got in, and I turned around, and Bill had the wounded door gunner, he was kind of helping him along. And I said, you guys okay? Yeah. Okay, then I turned. And now I'm gonna bifurcate my story, tell you 2 stories. As I turned around, my left hand was coming down, and and it hit a box lid. The box lid was maybe about 8 inches by 3 inches thin, about 1/4 inch thin. And soon as I hit that box lid, next thing I know, I'm standing at position of attention, and my arms are perpendicular from my body, and I am tumbling at a perfect 45-degree angle towards infinity, head over heels. I'm enveloped in this beautiful, pure sound. I mean, absolutely a pure sound I've never heard before. Up towards a bright light, and I'm saying to myself over and over, je pense que je suis, which I understood. It's from Descartes, I think, therefore I am. And all of a sudden, the tumbling sensation stopped, and I'm out like this, and I'm looking down, and I see the earth roll by. And except it's going in the opposite direction. And I saw the United States, and I said to myself, still, I was born and raised, and I went to Vietnam, and I'd just been shot. And as soon as I had that understanding, everything went black. I kind of felt like I went into a fetal tuck, and I rolled back into my body down in the rice paddy. Now, when I in my body, I thought to myself, I'm in trouble. If I breathe, I drown. And then I felt like I was coming out of it again, and then I kind of went back into it. And then I said, oh God, I can't die. I can't die. Alls I did with my life was trying to forget that woman I was engaged to. And the next thing I know, I'm in a railroad boxcar, and the train is going up, but not at a 45-degree angle. It's going up at an angle, and I'm sitting, the door's open, and I'm sitting right at the door. I'm looking down, and all I see is this black undulation. And I look behind me, and there is one baby in the middle of the boxcar. And I knew exactly what it meant. Back before I went into service, I had a friend, Wally Stoddard. He would, every now and then, he'd see somebody, and he says, man, that guy's brain is the size of a baby in a boxcar. And what it was saying to me is that my knowledge is so infinitesimal to what's going on. Okay. Now, somehow the train stops, I'm off, and I'm running, and there is a bar on the edge of the universe. Just a bar, attached to nothing, just hanging there. And I used to high jump in track in high
Okay.
school. And we had a thing, the Fosbury Flop